it's a book, when I started to read it, I was like, oh my God, how did I not read this 10 years ago? It really opened my eyes because at the time I had done my psych degree, I'd practiced psychology within government, and I'd become like, well, that doesn't work, or doesn't work all the time, doesn't work on certain issues that we're facing. And to see a book that really looked at different practices in different ways and tried to unpack what they are and highlight their strengths and their application was really impactful. And to this day, if I'm writing an academic paper, I find it hard not to cite.
Hey, happy Friday. So around here, that means rent-free. It's a short series where I ask Civic Punks about an idea, a book, a concept, or even just a line that has been living rent-free in their brain. Not necessarily something they read yesterday, but that thing that 10, 15, 20 years later is still living in their brain, shaping the way they think and what they're doing. Today, I'm talking with my friend Roger Watson. Roger is a key driver of design thinking and design work in Australia. He's written books about it. He teaches it. He's a brilliant mind. He talks about this idea of design 3.0. This is part of a much bigger conversation that we had when I stayed with him a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to hear the full conversation, you can go to the Civic Punks podcast and hear us jamming on all sorts of really fun ideas. But for today, we're going to focus specifically on what's living rent-free in his brain. So welcome to Civic Punks on the road here in Sydney, beautiful Sydney, Australia. And I'm here with Roger. Well, let's dive into this then. We don't have to go blow by blow through your career because it's quite prolific.
Sure.
But I guess maybe a good place to go next is, what is something early on in your career, like an idea, a book, a concept that you came across that's really shaped you?
Yeah, so early in my career, I wasn't much of a reader.
Which is surprising. We just went through and moved his, not even your full library, a section of your library.
Yeah.
There's a fair amount of books there,
Yeah.
so something shifted in you, to say the least. But yes.
But the really influential book after I found my current trajectory was Donald Schön's The Reflective Practitioner. Now, it's a book, when I started to read it, I was like, oh my God, how did I not read this 10 years ago? The answer was I wasn't reading books. I wasn't finished my undergrad, I wasn't reading books, and I wasn't reading books outside of my field. So Donald Schön, The Reflective Practitioner, it's all about him interviewing and observing how people do what they do and really unpacking what is a practice and what is it to be a practitioner within a particular field. And it really opened my eyes because at the time I had done my psych degree, I'd practiced psychology within government. I then moved into crime prevention. I did a master's degree in criminology to understand the dominant paradigm of that practice. And I'd become like, well, that doesn't work, or doesn't work all the time, doesn't work on certain issues that we're facing. And to see a book that really looked at different practices in different ways and tried to unpack what they are and highlight their strengths and their application was really impactful. And to this day, if I'm writing an academic paper, I find it hard not to cite that book because it was really meaningful for me. And it helped me see myself differently. It helped me see myself as a practitioner with lots of tools from psychology, lots of tools from communications, lots of tools from criminology. And none of them are necessarily perfect in the face of an issue that those disciplines are not experienced in facing. So yeah, in a way, it helped me see the world around me differently and see myself differently, and really helped me chill out a bit.
Which is helpful, particularly in today's world,
Yeah.
to be able to chill out a bit. Okay, so for people who haven't read the book, what are sort of the key notes, the key things in the book that they should know about?
So in The Reflective Practitioner, so the way you describe your practice isn't necessarily what your practice is. You may be trained in a certain way, but then when you start practicing, you move up the mastery levels to a point where the books that are written aren't necessarily really descriptive about what you're actually doing. And a lot of the professions that he looked at were quite situated, creative, like looked at architecture as one of the key case studies. And as an architect, every site is slightly different. We're here on my house. I've got 4 different levels on this house. That's been addressed by retaining walls and sandstone walls and all of that. The house is roughly even. We can't play marbles with the kids inside because...
It just adds a new element to the marbles game.
Yeah. And that, like as an architect, every site is different, even if it's sort of just flat and mundane, but every site has its own nuance. And so as an architect, really you as the practitioner who needs to spot those patterns and needs to spot the challenges and the creative constraints and then find excellence within that. That's I guess one of the main takeaways. The others I've probably already spoken about, in that each of us, if we've done a degree or done a diploma or trained in some way, we've been educated in a certain way through a certain lineage, and that lineage doesn't necessarily know about other parallel lineages. So, you look at designing and engineering, they should be quite close together, but they are so not. Like there's some similarities, there's a little bit of overlap, but they start from different places.
Okay.